Starmer's authority within his own party is shot to hell.
How do you get it back? This surely isn't unrecoverable.
You don't. You can't get it.
Good day, and welcome back to British Report. Imagine, if you will, the scene inside the cabinet room at number 10 Downing Street. The mahogany table is polished, the water carafes are full, and the forensic files are stacked neatly in front of a Prime Minister who spent his entire career believing that if you simply followed the rules of evidence, the verdict would always go your way. But as we head into the winter of 2025, the verdict is coming in from the most formidable judge in British broadcasting, and it is a total condemnation. Andrew Neil, a man who has witnessed the rise and fall of political titans for decades, has just delivered a stark, uncompromising assessment of Sir Keir Starmer's leadership that has left Westminster reeling. We are not just talking about a minor dip in the polls or a difficult week in the press, we are talking about a total breakdown of authority. Neil suggests that just 18 months into a landslide government, the Prime Minister's control over his own party is shot to hell. We are witnessing a political ghost ship, an abandoned vessel floating on a sea of Labour discontent, drifting toward a state of total anarchy while the captain stands on the bridge, wondering why the crew is no longer saluting. It is a staggering reversal of fortune for a man who was supposed to bring stability back to Britain. Quick favour, if you are loving this fast-paced, sharp-edged look into the chaos currently tearing through Westminster, hit that subscribe button and click the notifications bell icon. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It is free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks. If you did. Now back to the show, because Andrew Neil has just articulated what many have been whispering in the corridors of power, that the Starmer project is not just stalling, it is disintegrating. The transition from landslide victory to total anarchy has been swifter and more brutal than anyone could have predicted. Andrew Neil, speaking on Times Radio this morning, did not mince his words. He noted that the scale of internal dissent within the Labour Party is unprecedented for a government with such a massive majority. Normally, a landslide provides a Prime Minister with a political shield that lasts for at least a full term. Yet here we are, merely a year and a half into the mandate, and the discipline of the government has suffered what Neil calls a complete breakdown. He argued that as we head towards the festive season and into the new year, Keir Starmer's authority is not just weakened, it is fundamentally broken. How do you get it back? Neil asked rhetorically. His answer was as chilling as a December frost. You do not. You cannot get it back. It is a terminal diagnosis for a leadership that was built on the promise of being the adults in the room. The catalyst for this latest explosion of discontent is a policy U-turn that would make a gymnast dizzy. Despite the Labour manifesto explicitly ruling out a return to the European Union's customs union, senior figures within the party have spent the last few weeks publicly advocating for exactly that. This is not just a minor policy tweak, it is a direct assault on the Prime Minister's credibility. Sir Keir Starmer has gone on the record twice this month alone to state that the United Kingdom will not be rejoining the customs union. And yet his own cabinet ministers and senior MPs are making front-page news by contradicting him. Andrew Neil correctly identified this as a total failure of collective cabinet responsibility. In the British system, if the Prime Minister says no, the cabinet is supposed to follow suit or resign. Instead, Starmer's ministers are acting like they are in a coalition government with themselves, each pushing their own personal agendas while the Prime Minister looks on, seemingly powerless to enforce order. But the critique did not stop at the lack of discipline. It moved into the sheer economic absurdity of the proposal itself. Andrew Neil described the idea of rejoining the customs union as one of the most stupid economic policies anybody could propose. Why? Because it represents the worst of all worlds. By rejoining a customs union, the United Kingdom would be forced to abandon its hard-won independent trade deals with global partners like Australia, New Zealand, and the CPTPP nations. We would be required to accept EU trade law and the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice without having a single seat at the table to influence those laws. We would become a vassal state in all but name, bound by the rules of Brussels but silenced in its debates. Neil pointed out the ultimate irony. For all that, the economic benefit on its own is close to zero. It is a policy that offers no growth, removes all sovereignty, and breaks a fundamental promise to the electorate. It is, quite literally, a recipe for national humiliation. This leads us to the honesty gap that is currently swallowing the Prime Minister's reputation. Andrew Neil contrasted this halfway house customs union nonsense with the option of fully rejoining the European Union. He argued that if the Labour Party wants to be back in the EU, they should have the courage and the integrity to say so. Let us have that debate and put it back to the people, Neil challenged. At least that would be an honest conversation. Instead, we have a government that is trying to sneak back into the EU's orbit through the back door, pretending they are upholding their manifesto while simultaneously dismantling it. This muddling through approach is not just a policy failure, it is a moral failure. It treats the British public as if they are too dim to notice that their Brexit-respecting Prime Minister is presiding over a party that is desperate to hit the undo button on the 2016 referendum. The transition from policy confusion to leadership manoeuvring is where the story gets truly suspenseful. Andrew Neil suggested that these public challenges to Starmer's authority are not accidental. They are the opening salvos of a leadership contest that is already underway in all but name. Senior Labour figures are no longer waiting for the predicted setbacks in the 2026 local elections to make their move. They do not want to wait, Neil observed. Otherwise, why do this now? Why make these challenges to his authority at this moment? It appears the men in grey suits and the women in red blazers have decided that the Prime Minister is a liability that needs to be managed or removed before the party's poll numbers hit the floor. We are seeing a preemptive coup where ministers are staking out their territory on the customs union, the family farm tax and the NHS strikes, all to show the grassroots that they have the baubles that Starmer supposedly lacks. And let us talk about those poll numbers because they are historic for all the wrong reasons. Andrew Neil described Keir Starmer as the most unpopular Prime Minister since records began. Let that sink in for a moment. He has managed to alienate the public faster than Anthony Eden after Suez or Neville Chamberlain after Munich. When you are less popular than leaders who are in power during existential national crises, you know you have a problem. The public sees a Prime Minister who is forensic about the small things but totally blind to the big things. They see a leader who promised change but has delivered only a higher tax burden, more borrowing, and a sense of national drift. Neil's analogy of an abandoned ship is perfect. Starmer is the captain of the Marie Celeste. The ship is still moving, the lights are on, but the authority has vanished, and the crew has already taken to the lifeboats. This sense of anarchy is being fueled by a feeling that the government is lawless when it comes to its own promises. We have seen Rachel Reeves adjusting her CV, Angela Rayner's property tax row, and now a blatant disregard for the manifesto's stance on the customs union. Andrew Neil's assessment is that the mendacity of the government has become its only guiding principle. When a government starts to see its own manifesto as a list of suggestions rather than a contract with the people, it loses its moral right to govern. Starmer's inability to fire ministers who openly defy him suggests that he is terrified of a full-blown cabinet revolt. He is clinging to power not through strength but through a desperate hope that if he stays quiet enough, the storm might pass. But as Andrew Neil pointed out, you cannot quietly govern a country that is heading towards a customs union rebellion and a record-breaking flu crisis. The transition from domestic policy to the global Britain vision is equally grim. By entertaining the idea of a customs union, Starmer is signalling to the rest of the world that the United Kingdom is no longer open for independent business. Why would India or the United States conclude a trade deal with a nation that is about to outsource its trade policy back to Brussels? We are effectively sabotaging our own future to appease a group of ideological rejoiners in the cabinet who cannot accept the result of a democratic vote. Neil's critique is that this isn't just bad politics, it is a betrayal of the national interest. It leaves us in a strategic no man's land where we have no influence in Europe and no independence in the world. It is the definition of a vassal state status, and it is being pursued by a Prime Minister who is too weak to say no to his own benches. As we look toward the new year, the picture painted by Andrew Neil is one of a leadership in terminal decline. The Prime Minister is drifting, his authority is shot, and his party is in a state of close to anarchy. This is not the strong and stable leadership that was promised. This is a government that has lost its way, its purpose, and its leader's spine. Whether it is the baubleless performance at PMQs or the stupid economic policies being touted by his ministers, the message is clear. Keir Starmer is no longer in control of the narrative. He is a passenger in his own premiership, watching from the window as his party prepares for the post-Starmer era. The forensic lawyer has been out-argued by reality. The manager has lost control of his staff. The landslide winner has become the most unpopular leader in history. It is a stunning collapse that Andrew Neil has captured with his usual devastating precision. The ship is indeed abandoned, and as it floats on that sea of Labour discontent, the only question remaining is how long it will take to hit the rocks. If the cabinet is already positioning for a challenge, and if the manifesto is already being treated as scrap paper, the Starmer project is effectively over. We are just waiting for the official announcement. Andrew Neil's closing thought was perhaps the most poignant. You cannot get authority back once it is gone. It is like trust. Once it is broken, no amount of forensic tinkering can repair it. The British public has seen enough. They have seen the tax rises, the borrowing records, the broken promises, and the lack of leadership. They see a Prime Minister who is being obliterated on live TV and skewered at the dispatch box. They see a government that is shot to hell. And as the new year approaches, they are wondering if there is anyone in Westminster who actually has the baubles to lead. In summary, we are living through a period of profound political instability. The landslide has turned into a mudslide, taking the Prime Minister's reputation with it. Andrew Neil has provided the autopsy for a leadership that is still technically alive but effectively brain dead. The Customs Union rebellion is just the latest symptom of a much deeper disease, a total lack of conviction at the heart of government. Sir Keir Starmer might still be in number 10, but as Andrew Neil so brilliantly articulated, he is no longer the one in charge. The ship is drifting, the crew is mutinying, and the captain is nowhere to be found. It is a shambles, it is a disgrace, and according to Andrew Neil, it is irreversible. Thank you so much for watching.